The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Now broadcasting from the Right to Offend Media Studios in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, art, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report Live with Sam Whitfield.
But giving offense is good. In fact, it's essential.
And greetings to you, music lovers, thrill seekers, conversationalists, all across the fruited plain. I am Sam Whitfield, and this is the Whitfield Report Monday edition. First of the year. So glad to have you aboard. With us here at Right to Offend Media. And Happy New Year once again to all of you who are, perhaps tuning into the program for the first time. Also, happy Insurrection Day. It is January 6th. But ladies and gentlemen, the left out there, the left, ladies and gentlemen, who are crying over the, re-election of Donald Trump, and they bring up, the insurrection. They've brought it up all day today. It's their 9/11, folks. It really is. And if you think I'm being hyperbolic, which I'm not, but if you think I am, just go and, check out any of the tweets from Brian Krasenstein, Ed Krasenstein, Brooklyn Defiant Dad, or really any of these, big left-wing commentators, who, by the way, are paid DNC shills, most of them at this point. But these are the same people who are propagating, this narrative that January 6th is somehow either equally to, or in some cases, for some of them, just as bad as the terrorist attacks on September 11th, 2001. Now, of course, any sane, rational human being who was alive on September 11th, 2001, yours truly included, knows that September 11th was the most deadly terror attack on U.S. soil. 3,000 Americans dead on 9/11/2001 versus 1 casualty on January 6th. And, depending on how you look at it, minor property damage in the Capitol building. But yet, this is the left's 9/11. See, because Trump questioned the election, and then he encouraged his supporters to protest at the Capitol after the election. And then he encouraged people to riot inside the Capitol. Except, folks, he didn't. He had actually made a video saying to go home and to be respectful and to respect the process while they figured out what actually was going on with the election counts for the 2020 election. And yet Twitter and all of social media removed that video. And later on, they would deplatform Trump from Twitter, from Facebook, from Instagram, really up until Elon Musk purchased Twitter, a few years later. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to take you back to January 7th of 2021, the day after the insurrection. And why do I want to take you back to then? Because the late Rush Limbaugh, back when he was still alive, actually did a broadcast the day after January 6th. And Rush had a lot to say about January 6th, the protests, the 2020 election results, and so much more. And he also prophesized that they would deplatform Trump and deplatform many of his supporters. And with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, I actually want to go ahead and play for you clips from Rush Limbaugh's show on January 7th, 2021. Now, starting off here, Rush talks about how the left is angry that Donald Trump defied them in 2016. The deep state is angry that Trump defied them, and Rush says that he warned us in 2016 that the left would have their revenge. Take a listen. Pardon me here, folks. Apparently the audio is not syncing up fully real quick, so let me go ahead and see what's going on here before the show continues for too much longer. Sometimes these errors do happen on air, so I will check here and see what exactly is going on. So bear with me here for just a sec as we figure things out. In the meantime, though, this is a good time for me to announce that Steve Stratton, our friend of the show, author of the Shadows Here series, an all-around great guy, he will be our first guest a week from today on the Whitfield Report. He is coming out with a new book, the fourth book in his Lance Beowulf thriller series, and we're looking forward to seeing him on the program. I recorded the podcast with him today, actually, and I think it went well. So, anyway, bear with me here for just a few minutes longer. I want to make sure that let me just make sure that we are here. Okay, I think, ladies and gentlemen, let me just check here and make sure. And I apologize, kind of, editing things here on the air. But, sometimes that's what you do when it comes to broadcasts. And so let me just make sure the audio is, syncing here properly. Okay, hopefully everything's good. Let's test this out. Okay, let me see here. Give me one final minute here, folks. I think. Let's see here. Okay, let me make sure. Maybe let's see. Is there a way that I can? Okay. Okay. Can I? Okay. Can I tile? Okay. Can I tile this? Okay, that's what I thought, ladies and gentlemen. Huh. Technical difficulties, folks. sometimes, okay. Apparently, folks, that's what was needed. I needed to, you know, reset the thing. As it were. All right, we are good to go here. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I was, saying, El Rushbo, in his final days of broadcasting here, Rush talked about January 6th in this final broadcast, in one of these final broadcasts of his show. And as those of you who are watching on video can see, this broadcast is from January 7th, 2021, the day after the insurrection on the Capitol. During this time, too, as I should point out, Rush was also battling stage 4 lung cancer. And he had been in and out from doing his show throughout much of 2020. He had been diagnosed, I believe, in either January or February of 2020, and was sporadically, doing his broadcasts in between cancer treatments designed to prolong his life and give him the optimum amount of, I guess, a satisfactory lease on life for as long as possible. Right? So Rush, during this time, was in and out of the broadcast studio, as it were. And yet, when it came to, the days after the 2020 election, and specifically after January 6th, Rush took to the airwaves in one of his final broadcasts to discuss the aftermath of January 6th, and also to talk about how the deep state, this was their revenge on Trump for questioning their authority. So I want to go ahead here and play for you this audio, or this video rather. This is from the Rush Limbaugh show, January 7th, 2021, where Rush talks about the aftermath of January 6th. Now, this is just one segment I'll play here. I'll break it down for you as it goes on. Obviously, I'm not going to watch the full show, but there are significant clips of this that I do want to commentate on, because I do think that they're important for us to examine.
Number of emotions and explanations today, and I'm going to be weighing in myself on all of this. But I want to take you back to October 10th, 2016. This is before the election in 2016. This is before Donald Trump stunned the world in 2016. And the reason I want to play the soundbite for you is that I warned everybody of the very real possibility of what we are living through today. And can I tell you what we're living through today? Well, let me just give it to you in one short sentence fragment. One wrong word, ... The listening devices are out there. People monitoring this program and others, they're out there, and they're waiting for just one wrong word. That's how precariously balanced we all are here. For example, before I get to this soundbite, see, something I just said reminded me of something, a point that I wanted to make, and that is Bill Barr. Let me find it. Bill Barr has, everybody's condemning Trump. I mean, really, that's the point. Everybody now. Lindsey Graham, we've got that soundbite. In fact, that's late in the stack. Let me see if I can find the number. Lindsey, have 14 standing by as well. The Attorney General, William Barr, who has resigned, said that Trump betrayed the presidency by inciting a mob. And I had a number of people send me this, say, how can he do this? How can these people be abandoning Trump? Let me explain it to you. And I'll get right to audio soundbite number 18. If you today desire a life in Washington, D.C., and I don't just mean if you want to be in the Washington establishment, quote unquote, if you desire a life in official Washington, I don't mean if you want to work at Riggs Bank. I mean, if you want to live in the political elected class in Washington, you have to say that. You have to say it. There's no alternative for you. If you're elected, you might have, like Josh Hawley is not backing down. Matt Gaetz is not backing down. But most of them are. Because they desire a life in Washington, they have to say Trump betrayed the presidency. Here's what I said October.
Now, real quick, before I get into Rush's comments from 2016, what Rush said right there's is absolutely true, ladies and gentlemen. The establishment, the political class, was really pressuring everyone in Washington to condemn Trump for January 6th and to basically, excommunicate themselves from him. Because to stand with Trump was to commit suicide. And isn't it interesting that Rush brings up Matt Gaetz? Because as we saw earlier this year, or rather at the end of last year, ladies and gentlemen, isn't it interesting that Matt Gaetz was, accused of, sexual improprieties with a minor, even though, an investigation found that wasn't true? Isn't it interesting that happened right as he was going, for the position of AG at first? And believe me, I like Pam Bondi. I think she'll be a fine choice for Attorney General, but Matt Gaetz was, in the running initially, and yet he got ousted from that running because of this alleged scandal, right? And notice that Matt Gaetz was also one of the ones who stood by Trump after January 6th. So there you have it. Rush correctly predicting back in 2021 that those who stood by Trump in Washington after January 6th would suffer dire political consequences. Okay, so continuing on, Rush is going to be sharing his, what he said in 2016 about how the deep state would try and, saddlebag and ruin Trump and get their revenge on him.
October 10th, 2016. The establishment, with everything they are invested in the establishment, remaining the establishment and in power, they're just not going to sit back and trust this to your votes. They're not going to trust this to an election, to a campaign. They're not going to trust it at all. They're going to do everything they can to destroy whoever it is that wants to take control from them. And in the process, they're going to destroy that person so as to send a message to the next guy, don't even think about it. Don't even try. Look what we did to Donald Trump. Look what we did to whoever is the message. Don't doubt me. That's 3 weeks before the election in 2016. How was I able to say it? I know the people on the left. I know exactly who the enemy is. I know what we're up against, and I know who they are, and I know how they think, and I know how they roll. I know how they live. I know how you don't do this to them. You don't do it. And the first chance.
And Rush was absolutely right. What did we see immediately after Trump's election in 2016? The deep state and the establishment, career politicians, they saddlebagged Trump with everything from Russiagate and the Steele dossier, that complete farce, to bringing up, extramarital affairs that he had, while he was a private citizen, which, whether you, condone that or not, that had absolutely nothing to do with Trump's presidency or his, ability to, run the country. That would basically be like, if I were like an elected city council person in my area here in Florida, and someone made an investigation into me because of a prank that I pulled on someone in middle school, 15 years ago. Right? Like, that has nothing to do with the present or with my ability to lead or anything like that. But yet, it would be noise, right? And that's essentially what the whole Russiagate thing was. That's what all, that's what the, quote unquote hush money, cases were all about. With, Trump in regards to Stormy Daniels, etc., had absolutely nothing to do with his presidency. And so the left tried, and they tried to ruin Trump unsuccessfully. So what did they do? They stole the election. And then when Trump, urged his supporters to protest peacefully if they felt aggrieved by the election results. The left tried to make it seem like a mostly peaceful protest was a violent insurrection. And there you have it. But this gets better, folks, because Rush makes a few predictions here from 2021 about what is going to happen to conservatives in general after Trump, got ousted, basically. And keep in mind, this is about like a month roughly before Rush passed away. And yet Rush unfortunately accurately predicted the dire straits that the country would be in under Joe Biden.
Chance you give them to eliminate you, they are going to take it. Now let's go to Monday. Sirius Radio, satellite radio, the Dean Obadiah Show, talking to Hank Johnson, Congressman, Democrat, Georgia. Question: it would be so detrimental to our party if the Biden administration would say, well, Trump did some bad things, but let's look forward. It would be so destructive to our party if that's the way. In other words, they want a scalp. They want somebody buried. They want a coffin, folks. They want a political coffin. There's none of this Richard Nixon stuff. Let's put him on Air Force One, send him out to San Luis Obispo and let us forget him. San Clemente, wherever. There's none of this George W. Bush sent him down to Dallas and let's just pretend it never happened. They want a political coffin. Here's what Hank Johnson said in reaction to that claim.
Hank Johnson, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, is the, congressman who infamously said to a session of the Joint Chiefs during a congressional session, Hank Johnson was the one who said that he was worried about the security of Guam because if there were too many people on the island of Guam, Guam would tip over. And the poor Joint Chiefs had to look at him with a straight face and say that that wasn't going to happen, right? That's this guy who we're about to hear from. And yet Hank Johnson was also the one who was saying, we need to frog march, anyone who was at January 6th in front of, judges and juries, and we need to arrest them. So as you're about to hear,
we don't want to be nice. We don't want to move forward. We want blood.
We've got to make sure that those who come after Donald Trump know that they will not be allowed to get away with what Donald Trump did, that they will be held accountable. They will be treated, yes, like Negroes. They will be perp walked to the jail, handcuffed, not in front of them, but behind them. And they will be booked, fingerprinted, have to make bond, and have to hire a lawyer just like everybody else and go through the system. If we allow him to get away with it, there'll be others who try to do the same thing, and we don't even want them to think about trying to do what Trump has done.
There you go. So, 3 weeks before.
and ladies and gentlemen, we saw that happen. Very clear case of that, in fact. Multiple people at January 6th were convicted, and as far as the people who, broke into the Capitol and actually went in there, who actually did incite violence, or tried to, those people like the Baked Alaskas and the QAnon shaman, uh, you know, those people were, idiots, and they should have gone into the Capitol building. They should have stayed outside and, just continued to peacefully protest out there. But there were other protesters out there who, were simply protesting peacefully out there. They weren't doing anything wrong. And yet they were arrested because they were associated, quote unquote, with radical right wing groups, quote unquote. For example, and I can't remember the gentleman's name off the top of my head, but one of Max Sand's friends, who was part of the Proud Boys, actually unfortunately got wrapped up, in a similar situation where he was minding his own business. He was protesting peacefully, but because he was involved with the Proud Boys and because he was in DC at the time, and the Proud Boys are one of the left-wing boogeymen out there, he had to be made an example of. This gentleman, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head right now, had been a criminal previously, had a record, was trying to put his life together, and, had kept his nose clean, kept out of trouble. And yet, because he was simply at January 6th, this gentleman was basically told, you can take a minor deal where you'll serve, a minor sentence for being at January 6th, or, we'll basically ruin your life. So he took the smaller sentence, and that's what happened. So yes, political persecution does happen in this country, ladies and gentlemen. Don't tell me it doesn't.
For the election, I essentially predicted exactly what's happened yesterday and today to Donald Trump, to you who voted for him. Hank Johnson comes along on Monday and confirms it. He doesn't know he's confirming what I said because he doesn't know what I said because Hank Johnson doesn't listen, but he'll talk to people about me as though he does. Here's Lindsey Graham last night's Senate floor after debate resumed on the objection to the Arizona electoral votes.
Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate it to end this way. Oh my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president. But today, first thing you'll see, all I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I've tried to be helpful.
There you have it. If you want a life in Washington, you have to say that.
Lindsey Graham, being a spineless jellyfish as always. Nothing new there, folks. Absolutely nothing new.
If you want a life in the political class, even as a loser Republican, you have to say that. That's the reality of life on the ground in Washington today. And it will be the case tomorrow. I don't know for how long it's going to be the case, but it is the immediate future. So get used to it. The voices of dissent will be silenced on Facebook and Twitter, including Donald Trump, including you. The voices of dissent will be dealt with accordingly. And I've been thinking so many things, folks.
And And they were, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember. Keep in mind, this is back in 2021. Elon Musk had not, as far as the public was aware at the time, he was not even considering buying Twitter at the time. So Rush was never around to, witness that saga, unfortunately. I do often wonder what Rush would have thought of, Elon Musk purchasing Twitter and, Elon Musk's subsequent influence, in his kind of coming over to, the Republican Party and becoming a conservative. I do wonder about that, what Rush would have thought about that. Because I definitely, gosh, there are just so many things. Him and Andrew Breitbart both are two people whose opinions I really wish we could, hear from regarding, what's gone on over the past couple of years and, ultimately what's, honestly, I would love to, know what Rush would think of, Trump's victory, this past election. And the, the thing with the assassination attempt and all that. I guarantee you that Rush would have had a very interesting take on all that. No doubt about that. But, anyway, continuing on, I want to finish this, this segment of the show because I do think it's important. So, continuing on.
During all of this, when I've had moments of, shall we say, consciousness, imagine how things might be different today. And I know it's no fun to play this game because it doesn't accomplish anything, but I want to get some of these things out there and off my chest. Imagine how things might be different today if Congress was as mad, was as outraged, when private businesses were being burned to the ground and innocent citizens were attacked this past summer during riots across the country in Seattle, Minneapolis, New York City, Portland, Oregon. Imagine if there was anything near the degree of outrage over all of that when it was not the political class property being torched and destroyed. It was not the political class's lifestyle that was being summarily attacked. Nothing was done about it. In fact, it was ignored in the mainstream media. Mainstream media? What riot? Where? What violence? Any violence? There's peaceful protests out there. What are you talking about? There's no riots. And they didn't show any videotape of any of the burning and the looting and all that. You had to search for it yourself because there isn't any news anymore. And if you had no idea that it had happened, you wouldn't even go look for it because you didn't know it had happened. People who make
That is another thing I want to point out here, ladies and gentlemen. It does, Rush brings up a good point, which I initially, wasn't going to bring up. But, it does, it does warrant giving some thought to the fact that the left, treats January 6th as if it were equal or, in some cases worse than 9/11. And yet that previous, that very same, summer in 2020, during the George Floyd riots, and that's what they were. The George Floyd protests were not mostly peaceful. They were full-on riots. People were burning down businesses, terrorizing citizens, actual, destruction of property. All while the rest of us, by the way, were told to shelter indoors and, stay indoors because of COVID-19. And yet the protesters, out there in the streets, the rioters, they were allowed to destroy property freely. But yet, January 6th, where the vast majority of protesters were in fact peaceful, and then a handful of wackos actually went into the Capitol. You mean to tell me that that's that's the most horrific thing? Liberals? Is that what you mean to tell me? Because it's just a simple farce, ladies and gentlemen. That's all it is.
Make the country work, though, they were outraged. People who make the country work wanted names, wanted justice. Imagine how frustrated and angry Congress would be if the riots that happened yesterday, if you want to call them that, happened for months. Can you imagine if what happened in one day went on for months like it did this past? Can you imagine how outraged they would be? They didn't put up with it for one day when they think they are the targets. In fact, the rioters this past summer were said to be mostly peaceful. The people protesting yesterday got no such benefit of the doubt. Even the most fervent and ardent supporters of the president, columnists in the media, have turned 180 degrees against Donald Trump, because if you desire a career in political Washington, which includes political New York and political Boston and so forth, you have to abandon Donald Trump. And you have to pretty much blame him for everything that's gone wrong. And you have to get as close as you can to apologizing for helping him. What if the Capitol Police, what if, like last summer, we're running around here demanding the police departments of this country be defunded? Can you imagine the political class in Washington if the Capitol Police were said to be defunded? If somebody
And that is a very good point that Rush brings up too. What about the Capitol Police that defend the Washington establishment, huh? The left's made a big stink about, defunding the police and all that, but what about, Washington Metro? What about the Capitol Police Department? All these same, left-wing political bigwigs who were calling for the defunding of the police across the country, they were the first ones to cry about, the Capitol Police need to come and, save us and rescue us. right? There was no, calls to defund them. Oh no, folks. None whatsoever.
Somebody were running around making a movement out of defunding the Capitol Police. Can you imagine the reaction of Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and all the rest? How would that feel to them? So there's two sets of rules. As we told you, there will continue to be two sets of rules. The law will not be applied fairly to various rioters because it matters who you are when you're rioting, not what you are doing. This we now know beyond a shadow of a doubt. Doesn't matter what you do, it's who you are when you're doing it. What if those arrested yesterday had been bailed out by the NRA? You remember how Hollywood leftists and a number of other left-wing political activists, including journalists, were bailing out people put in jail during the riots under the peaceful protests this past summer? What if the NRA were bailing out people that were engaged in the protests of yesterday? Can you imagine the outrage of that? Leftist groups did exactly that this past summer, and the media said, what? They didn't care. Democrats did not care. That simple. Two sets of rules. So a brief break. We will come back and resume right after this. We'll work your phone calls into today's incredible excursion into broadcast excellence. Sit tight, folks.
America's Anchorman, Rush, on the EIB Network.
You know, that ending jingle there, Rush's jingle before he cuts to break, gives me chills every time I hear it. It did when he was alive too, but now that he's up there in the big radio broadcast studio in the sky, it still gives me chills. Rush, we miss you. But that was his take on January 6th, ladies and gentlemen. So why, pray tell, am I sharing that with you? Ladies and gentlemen, why did I take the time to share all those clips of Rush? Because I do think that his what he said was important, and he was absolutely right about how conservatives and Trump supporters would be treated under the Biden administration. And as I pointed out a few minutes ago, Max's friend was unfairly prosecuted for just simply being in DC. But it's I don't want to end the show on too much of a downer because January 6th was the left's 9/11. And Rush was a bit down on January 7th. Rush was also very confident that the MAGA agenda would rise again. that the MAGA movement will succeed. And he was right. So this was right after the 2020 election. I want to go ahead and play this because I like I said, I think Rush, you never really know what someone would say. You never know what someone would say after, they've passed about anything in particular. But I do think Rush would be proud of, Trump's victory in 2024. And he did correctly predict that the MAGA movement would succeed again. I'm not sure if he thought that Trump himself would run for the presidency again, but I want to end the show with this tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because I do think it's, very wise and very uplifting that Russia's prediction that MAGA would succeed again, that also came true, and I think that's what we should focus on, ladies and gentlemen. So, this is Rush Limbaugh in the immediate aftermath of the 2020 election, saying that he believes that the MAGA agenda will succeed again.
Whatever Trump calls himself, party ID-wise, to me is not relevant. It's what his agenda is. And he still has the best agenda of any politician, short of Reagan, in my lifetime. Make America great again. There's a reason 75 million people voted for Trump. There's a reason that when he made that trip down the escalator on June 5th of 2015, there is a reason that he had majority support in the Republican Party. And that is the people that voted for Trump know exactly what the left has been doing to our country. It's nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with white supremacy, nothing to do with white this or that. It has to do with the left destroying Western civilization, destroying the very culture this country was built on, destroying constitutional morality and the rule of law. It had nothing to do with race. It had nothing to do with white people thinking their country was being taken away from them, made to be safe. Nothing to do with that at all. But that's what the left says it was about. They never gave up on that. They're wrong about it. But people were livid over this. They were livid being called racists. They were livid when they heard that they wanted to return to slavery. That's what the Democrats were saying the Trump agenda was about. Just a crock. It was always about a great country. It was always about making America great again for everybody who lives here, for everybody who's here legally. It was not complicated. Make America great again is not something that you need a PhD to understand. It is so simple, people glommed onto it like white on rice. They loved it. It's why they're still there. And they still believe it can happen. And it can. The Trump MAGA agenda can succeed. It will succeed again the next time it's implemented. Because it resonates with millions and millions of people. It's going to really resonate after 2 years of the Democrat tearing this country apart, which they're going to do. The Democrats are going to tear this country apart, value by value, tradition by tradition, institution by institution. They're going to tear it apart. They're going to make America long and hope and desire for the America of their youth, which was great. And there was nothing wrong with it. There was nothing wrong with the Ozzie and Harriet version of America. There was nothing wrong with the Beaver Cleaver version of America. There was nothing wrong with America then. The Democrats are going to make something wrong with America. They're going to turn it into something it was never intended to be. And the more they do that, the greater the opportunity we're going to have to make America great again. The Trump agenda will not die, no matter what he calls it. Republican, independent, take your pick. Doesn't matter to me.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The great L. Rush Limbaugh was absolutely spot on. And he was right. Within 2 years, arguably less than 2, I would say, America was yearning for the MAGA presidency. Because Joe Biden really, and I mean really, fucked this country up royally. I don't need to go into too much detail on that. You all have lived through the Biden presidency. Folks, I don't need to tell you. We've all lived through it. But Rush was absolutely right that America would yearn for, Trump's America once again. It's not complicated at all. And so, I believe Rush would be happy. I believe he would be proud today of Trump's comeback. I believe, although I never had a chance to, interview him or meet him myself, I believe that Rush would be proud of the new media voices out there, myself included. And folks, I am proud of this audience, of the work that we've done and that we're going to continue to do in 2025. It is shaping up to be a great year, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to have everyone on board. This is going to be a great year. And we've got a lot of great stuff going on at Right to Offend Media. So stay tuned for all of that. We've got a lot coming down the pike for this year and can't wait to share it all with you. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to today's program. And I want to encourage you all to tune in to the Wednesday edition of the Whitfield Report, 10 p.m. Eastern on the Whitfield Report live channel on Rumble. As always, I will be joined by Max, Sand, and Morpheus for the Wednesday live show. Then, of course, we have the Sandwich Makers and Bits and Bones over the weekend. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, ladies and gentlemen, I will be having Steve Stratton on next week to discuss his book, Caribbean Harvest. Can't wait you all to listen to that episode. We had a great conversation, and Steve is a great guest as always. So it's just the beginning of 2025, folks, and we're already off to a great start. And I want to thank you all for tuning in to the Whitfield Report. Thank you very much for listening and for supporting the show. God bless, God save this great nation, and God, freedom, legacy, in that order.
The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Thank you for watching the Whitfield Report live on the Right to Offend Media Network. Make sure to check out Sam's books on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. You can follow Sam on X at SamW_NGC and the Right to Offend Media Network at RTO Media. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And until next time, God bless, God save this great nation. God, freedom, legacy, in that order.